Something else I wanted to talk about is like how I think Filipino Americans are good at assimilating, like learning how to adapt to other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I think because, like we mentioned this before, like because they speak English, yeah, they're good at adapting to other cultures, and also it might be because they have a history of colonization by the Spanish and the Americans.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just Filipinos are good, yeah, with adapting to different situations, right? Like if I go to a church that's not mostly, I mean, maybe that's why Filipino, you can throw a Filipino basically in most situations, right? Like in churches where there's not that many, like Filipinos can go to like other churches and be able to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty quickly, I think. Not everyone, but in general, most Filipinos are able to adapt, I think. But the reverse is also true. Like you could put somebody who's non-Filipino in a Filipino church, and we're very sensitive to making sure that that person is able to adapt or integrate well into that culture, right? Like we're very sensitive about like using our own language when there's somebody who can't understand, or like how that person might be feeling if they're embarrassed or kind of shy. Like we're always there to like, oh, are you okay? Or like, do you need anything? Or you know what I mean? It's like on that flip side, I think the flip side of adaptability is not just for our own, but like we're thinking about the other people. I guess that's part of hospitality too. But what you're saying about adaptability, like I think Filipinos in general, like you lived in a place where you lived in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, I lived in Pennsylvania.
I don't know if there's that many Filipinos there, but Filipinos in general can endure and adapt.
Yeah. And I think not only like adapting and assimilating, I think is what I wanted to emphasize too is like my parents are like Filipinos in general. We go to the American events. If an American organization is organizing like the Promise Keepers, my dad went to that. But when I was talking to my Chinese friend, and maybe this is just specific to him, but he told me that Chinese people don't go to those, like they don't go to the American conferences and events, and instead they organize their own. So like there are mission conferences, but the Chinese, they created their own missions conference.
Yeah. And maybe this is probably a broad brush, right? I mean, I'm sure there are Chinese there, but I think you're right. It's because of language, probably. Filipinos they know English, so most Filipinos can speak English. So in general, we're okay with just joining.
Yeah.
Instead of starting our own.
Yeah. So, and then it's not only like they're good at English, but they're good at understanding. Like I think every Filipino is like pretty good at understanding English, just because that's the language they hear in schools and movies they watch in English. Like my cousins, they even in the Philippines they understood English, but the thing was they just couldn't speak it. So with conferences, they don't feel. They're okay with going to like American conferences. And also like my Chinese friend, he told me when there was Promise Keepers or stuff like that, his dad didn't see it as his perspective of it was like, oh, that's the American, that's the thing for the Americans. And then
really?
Yeah, so they wouldn't generally go to those things. But with Filipinos, maybe it's because there's a smaller amount of Filipinos, but for Filipinos, they were always like, hey, let's all go to this American, they wouldn't say American, but they would say, let's go to this conference that American organization is organizing.
But the other, your friend's parents would rather have their own.
Yeah, they would rather start their own, or they would go there to observe, and then they would start their own. But for Filipinos, we just wouldn't see the need to create our own. We would just go there, go join the American